All right, so the question is, how is it that herbs and herbal medicine can be so effective for hormonal problems? And I want to start by being clear about when we say herbal medicine, what we're talking about, because um, when I say herbal medicine, what we're talking about is the use of very specific plant-based, mineral-based, animal-based substances for very specific medicinal purposes. So we're not talking about just like, okay, let's just take whatever herb and then hope it works. It's a very precise, time tested, long tradition that we actually use at the Axelrod Clinic that is a kind of a synergy, but mainly rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, which has a very, very long history of a very long and unbroken lineage of herbal wisdom. So that's mainly what we're focusing on and using, and it can be incredibly effective. Now, one of the important things to understand about herbs is that obviously, well, they're plants, right? And we start there. They're plants, they're minerals, they're animal substances. And so, in order for those plants, like for instance, why is a fern and then a cactus is a cactus? Well, um, it's because those plants have two different types of intelligence. They have two different, genetic profiles, and they evolved under different conditions. And so there's kind of a different natural intelligence to each of those different plants. So what happens is when we start to use plants as medicine, we're literally tapping into that intelligence. We're tapping into the language and the sort of the signal of what makes that plant unique. And we're putting that into our body so that our body can then process that signal and use that intelligence. I always think of herbal medicine as, in a way, our bodies. Now, here's the key. Another thing is that our bodies are nature. We forget this, but our bodies come from the earth. Our bodies are made up of the same substances as plants and mineral and rocks and mountains and animals. We are part and parcel of this thing that we call nature. And so all of these different substances and all these different intelligences that make up all the different types of plants and other things in nature, our body is very familiar with that. It's like a native language to our body. And when we ingest those substances, or we use them topically, or we smell them, or whatever it is we're doing, like with aromatherapy, what we're doing is we're tapping into that natural language that our body innately understands. And so when it comes to hormonal conditions, herbs can be insanely helpful, incredibly helpful. In fact, I mean, I think that, to be honest with you, herbs are probably the most powerful for hormonal adjustment and hormonal optimization. And the reason for that is simple. Again, our bodies have a very intelligent, and I talked about this on one of the other videos. Our bodies are constantly in communication with themselves, and there's a constant conversation going on. In fact, there's literally billions of conversations going on at any given time inside of our body, and all these conversations are happening on many different levels. We've proven this through science that electromagnetic waves generated by the heart and the brain are picked up by other cells in the body, and they are used as information, as well as chemical signals like hormones and peptides and other things that our body uses to communicate chemically through the bloodstream, through the body fluid. These are all um, signals and information that our body is generating and receiving. When we insert a intelligent representation of a signal in nature in the form of a plant, what we're doing is we're giving our bodies this very intricate and very detailed information that can't be given in just a supplement. Although supplements are insanely powerful too, especially the way we use them at the clinic here. And we love using supplements, but herbs take it to another level. And that's why typically with our patients, we don't prescribe a ton of herbs. We will usually give one herbal formula, maybe two, and that's it. Because again, with herbs being such a powerful signal and a powerful element of conversation that we're entering or that we're inserting into our physiology, we don't want to overwhelm the body with too many signals at once. Our bodies crave and thrive on simplicity, actually. And one of the biggest issues that we have in our society today, and one of the reasons we see so many chronic diseases and so many hormonal problems today, I believe, is that life has become so complicated. And our bodies are trying to do so many things and deal with so many different stressors and trying to adapt to so many different situations that it's easy for our bodies to start to become a little bit confused and overwhelmed and start doing things, again, trying to adapt and trying to do the best they can to support what we want to do. But in order to do those things, they start to develop these habits, these adaptive habits that are not so healthy in the long term, right? And so with herbs, what we can do is we can take that and put these very, again, intentional, focused substances into our body that help, that again, speak the native language of the body and talk to especially the hormonal system, because something that's important to keep in mind is that plants make hormones. Plants have hormones. Plants need hormones just like we do. All the different changes that happen in a plant, the growth, the color, the shape, the flowering, everything is all just like with us, it's all guided by hormones. Hormones are what guide all of the different changes and transformations that happen in our bodies. So the plants have those hormones in them as well. And a lot of times they're not, in fact, most of the time they are not identical to the human hormone, but they're close enough to the human hormone that the body is able to respond to them. And again, it's like, think about it this way. You speak English, I speak English, right? Obviously, you must understand English because you're either listening to this in English or you're reading it in English if we have subtitles. So you speak English, I speak English, right? Now, my accent might be a little different than yours, right? So when you talk to me, it sounds a little bit different. It's not identical. Yet, I still know what you mean, right? That's exactly how plant hormones interact with the human hormonal system. The body knows what they mean. It's not going to respond with the same force and power as it does to its own internal hormones. Like, there's no way that you could expect a plant estrogen to have the same power as the body's own internally generated estrogen. However, it's going to help the body and it's going to give the message to the body that estrogen gives, right? Same thing with testosterone. Same thing with all types of other hormones that plants make. This is why also with herbs you have to be a lot more careful. Supplements are not hormones typically, although there are a couple of over-the-counter supplements that are actually hormones. We have melatonin, we have DHEA, and there's one more that you can get over the counter. It's called, well, you can actually get progesterone over the counter, and you can get pregnenolone over the counter. Those are all very weak and very safe hormones. So, it's not that big of a deal if you play around with them yourself. You won't end up hurting yourself. You may, obviously, you can take too much of any hormone and not feel so well, but you're not going to, give yourself cancer or cause any huge problem like you can if you take estrogen in too high of a doses or testosterone in too high of a doses. But the point I'm trying to make is that when you're using herbs, you do have to be more careful. You do have to be more skilled with herbs and make sure that, honestly, that I really think that everybody, now granted, herbs are freely available, and again, you have to really try hard to hurt yourself with herbs. Herbs are very, very safe. Typically, even if you take the wrong herb, again, you're not going to end up, with a stroke or a heart attack or killing yourself, right? So it's okay. Just like And the bottom line is herbs are just food. They're just like food that you would never eat because they just taste horrible. I mean, to me, that's, except for the herbs that are spices like basil, rosemary, and things like that, which do have medicinal properties. And honestly, all natural foods have medicinal properties. But what we call herbal medicine specifically are plants and things that just are not very palatable. So we don't eat them in our daily diet, but when we need to eat them for medicinal purposes, we just eat them, right? The herbs we use here in the clinic are encapsulated, and we don't make people, cook these really smelly or horrible tasting teas or anything like that. It's all just powder in capsules, and the powder is sourced from very reliable and very reputable sources. And so we know that our herbs are tested for heavy metals, tested for all types of other toxins and things like that. And we even prescribe herbs to our pregnant patients from time to time, and we're totally confident doing so. We've never had any issues with our herbs whatsoever. So if you do end up working with us, you never have to worry about the fact that our herbs are 100% safe and very, very high quality. So taking these herbs, though, can have a much more powerful effect on the hormonal system. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can end up in territory that you really didn't mean to go into. And the thing about the hormonal system and the thing about our bodies is our bodies are very perceptive, receptive, subtle, and they will learn things really, really fast. And when we're giving our bodies plant substances and hormones, what we're doing is we're speaking in this very, very powerful native language. It's kind of like the source code of life, and we're putting that in our bodies. And it can start to shift things in a way that, and I've seen this happen where people are kind of taking herbs they maybe don't need. I wouldn't say they're not supposed to be taking them, but definitely it's like they're taking things they don't need to take, and they end up with some problems because their body is taking that information and learning and generating a new hormonal pattern, a new hormonal crosstalk that it wouldn't have done on its own, and it can take a little while for that to calm back down. That's the thing about these hormonal pattern shifts, is that they can take a little while to calm back down. And so this is why with the herbs, we are very judicious, and we use them very sparingly, and we use them very intentionally and in a very focused way. But that's how they affect the hormonal system. I mean, we can give you herbs that are very, very, have a very high affinity for the adrenal glands, and that are actually giving the body signals on how to adapt to stress. Like, we call these herbs adaptogens, and essentially it's like a signal, a native language, blueprint, whatever you want to call it, that you put into your body, and it helps your body and helps remind your body how to adapt to stress. And we've had lots of patients with adrenal fatigue when we give them these adaptogenic herbs, along with maybe some supplements or maybe another herbal formula that might be used to address the cause of the adrenal fatigue, which could be chronic inflammation, could be poor sleep, could be environmental allergies. There's so many different things that can tax the adrenal glands. But we give these plant substances that literally, in my opinion, again, it's almost like nature teaching or reminding nature. Like, you have this plant and it has this type of adaptive mechanism to stress. It's a very hardy plant. It's a very strong plant that can survive very cold winters and very hot summers and conditions where there's not a ton of water, and can also survive when there is a lot of water. So it's a very adaptable plant. And then we ingest that substance, and it's like our cells, it comes in and it conveys that knowledge back into our body. Or reminds our body. I don't want to say conveys it back, because our body never lost the knowledge, but just like we can forget things, and like we can go through life sometimes and One of the things that I always try to do is whenever I'm in a stressful situation, I always try to remember, okay, just take a few deep breaths. Don't get too worked up, right? And then what happens is sometimes I'll forget to do that. It doesn't mean that I lost the knowledge. It doesn't mean that knowledge is no longer inside me. It just means that I just forgot to do it, and then I need a reminder, right? And so these herbs kind of serve as a reminder from nature to nature, right? And that's why they're so awesome. And when it comes to hormones, we've talked about how different glands secrete different hormones, and different substances are used to communicate different transformations that the body wants to create, whether it's TSH telling the thyroid, hey, make more hormone, make more thyroid hormone, or it's the adrenal glands telling the body to raise the blood pressure a little bit because we're trying to focus, right? Whatever it is, these hormones are calling upon our cells and tissues to change what they're doing. And by introducing these different plants, when we know which plants affect which tissues, we know which plants convey the different types of wisdom and signals and instructions into which areas of the body, then we can be very intentional when we understand that when someone comes in with a thyroid issue, and one of the things that's causing that thyroid problem is adrenal fatigue. And then we can give the body those things that are going to help the adrenals to stabilize their foundation and hold up that foundation upon which thyroid function rests. We can do that, and we can be very intentional about that. So that is, in a nutshell, I guess, some of the foundations of how we use herbs to help hormonal problems. And again, I think one of the most important things to remember too is that plants have hormones. And so when we ingest plants, we are sending hormones into our bodies, and we're telling our bodies, and our bodies are taking that information and they're using it. So again, using plants in a high concentration at a therapeutic dose to guide the body in a certain direction, when it's done skillfully, such as how we know how to do it at the Axelrod Clinic, it can have really fast effects and generate and really just help the body regenerate, heal, and strengthen itself and get back to where people feel like themselves again. So if you're interested in discussing with us how we might be able to help you, whether it's the herbal medicine that you want to incorporate, or one of the other therapies such as the nutritional supplement therapy, or some of the mind-body, stress reduction and stress managing techniques that we teach, or the acupuncture, or whatever it is, come on in and let's do a free consultation. The free consultation is just a conversation. It's chill, it's laid back. There's no pushy sales that's going to go on or anything like that. You're going to come in, you're just going to tell us your story, tell us the backstory, tell us the history. From there, we're going to go ahead and really get clear on what the prognosis might be. Every once in a while we do get people in who we really need to refer them out, or at least refer them to an endocrinologist or to a specialist that we can work with in tandem to make sure that things are properly managed, because maybe they have a more serious condition that we want to make sure is being properly monitored. But 99% of the time, the people who come see us have already been to the doctor. They've already tried tons of different things. We know that they're not in any kind of life-threatening medical situation, and we can easily move forward and work together. And so once we do this free initial consultation, we're going to then explain to you how our process works. And it's very simple, and we don't price gouge people. You're not going to have to pay us thousands of dollars just to start working with us. We want to make this accessible, and we want to make this affordable. So don't worry about that. And once you come in and we explain the process to you, then you can make your own decision and decide, is this something that you want to do? And again, we're not going to push you into it or in any way try to pressure you to do it, because at the end of the day, we want you to want to do it, and we want you to be on board and ready to make the changes that you're going to need to make in order to come back to feeling alive and full of vitality, joyful, purposeful again, which is how we feel when our hormones are functioning at peak optimization, which is what we help people do. So, yeah, if you're interested, go ahead and you just click the link or the button that's somewhere around here and request your free initial consultation. And it's a pretty simple process. And we look forward to meeting you and talking to you and getting to know you a little bit and see if we can help you. And if it turns out that you want to move forward, then trust me, we will do everything in our power to make sure that you are successful. All right. So that's all I got. See you next time.